Day 95. 1 Samuel 1-3. Now there was a man named Elkanah who was from Ramathaim-zophim in the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives, one named Hannah and the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year Elkanah would go up from his city to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where Eli's 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were priests to the Lord. And whenever the day came for Elkanah to present his sacrifice, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved her even though the Lord had closed her womb. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival would provoke her and taunt her viciously. And this went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival taunted her until she wept and would not eat. "Hannah, why are you crying?" her husband Elkanah asked. "Why won't you eat? Why is your heart so grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" So after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on a chair by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. In her bitter distress, Hannah prayed to the Lord and wept with many tears. And she made a vow, pleading, "O Lord of hosts, if only you will look upon the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, not forgetting your maidservant but giving her a son, then I will dedicate him to the Lord all the days of his life. And no razor shall ever come over his head." As Hannah kept on praying before the Lord, Eli watched her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and though her lips were moving, her voice could not be heard. So Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, "How long will you be drunk? Put away your wine." "No, my lord," Hannah replied. "I am a woman oppressed in spirit. I have not had any wine or strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman, for all this time I have been praying out of the depth of my anguish and grief." "Go in peace," Eli replied, "and may the God of Israel grant the petition you have asked of him." "May your maidservant find favor with you," said Hannah. Then she went on her way, and she began eating again, and her face was no longer downcast. The next morning Elkanah and Hannah got up early to bow in worship before the Lord, and then returned home to Ramah. And Elkanah had relations with his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I have asked for him from the Lord." Then Elkanah and all his house went up to make the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, but Hannah did not go. After the boy is weaned, she said to her husband, "I will take him to appear before the Lord and to stay there permanently." "Do what you think is best," her husband Elkanah replied, "and stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord confirm his word." So Hannah stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Once she had weaned him, Hannah took the boy with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine. Though the boy was still young, she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And when they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli. "Please, my lord," said Hannah, "as surely as you live, my lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this boy, and since the Lord has granted me what I asked of him, I now dedicate the boy to the Lord. For as long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord." So they worshipped the Lord there. At that time Hannah prayed, "My heart rejoices in the Lord in whom my horn is exalted. My mouth speaks boldly against my enemies, for I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one holy like the Lord. Indeed, there is no one besides you. And there is no rock like our God. Do not boast so proudly, or let arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God who knows, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble are equipped with strength. The well-fed hire themselves out for food, but the starving hunger no more. The barren woman gives birth to 7, but she who has many sons pines away. The Lord brings death and gives life, he brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth, he humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them among princes and bestows on them a throne of honor. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's, and upon them he has set the world. He guards the steps of his faithful ones, but the wicked perish in darkness, for by his own strength shall no man prevail. Those who oppose the Lord will be shattered. He will thunder from heaven against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth and will give power to his king. He will exalt the horn of his anointed. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy began ministering to the Lord before Eli the priest. Now the sons of Eli were wicked men, they had no regard for the Lord or for the custom of the priests with the people. When any man offered a sacrifice, the servant of the priest would come with a three-pronged meat fork while the meat was boiling and plunge it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or cooking pot. And the priest would claim for himself whatever the meat fork brought up. This is how they treated all the Israelites who came to Shiloh. Even before the fat was burned, the servant of the priest would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, "Give the priest some meat to roast, because he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." And if any man said to him, "The fat must be burned first, then you may take whatever you want," the servant would reply, "No, you must give it to me right now. If you refuse, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of these young men was severe in the sight of the Lord, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt. Now Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod. Each year his mother would make him a little robe and bring it to him when she went with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice. And Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, saying, "May the Lord give you children by this woman in place of the one she dedicated to the Lord." Then they would go home. So the Lord attended to Hannah, and she conceived and gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord. Now Eli was very old, and he heard about everything his sons were doing to all Israel and how they were sleeping with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. "Why are you doing these things?" Eli said to his sons. "I hear about your wicked deeds from all these people." "No, my sons, it is not a good report I hear circulating among the Lord's people. If a man sins against another man, God can intercede for him, but if a man sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him?" But they would not listen to their father, since the Lord intended to put them to death. And the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with man. Then a man of God came to Eli and told him, "This is what the Lord says, did I not clearly reveal myself to your father's house when they were in Egypt under Pharaoh's house? And out of all the tribes of Israel I selected your father to be my priest, to offer sacrifices on my altar, to burn incense, and to wear an ephod in my presence. I also gave to the house of your father all the offerings of the Israelites made by fire. Why then do you kick at my sacrifice and offering that I have prescribed for my dwelling place? You have honored your sons more than me by fattening yourselves with the best of all the offerings of my people Israel. Therefore, the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I did indeed say that your house and the house of your father would walk before me forever. But now the Lord declares, far be it from me. For I will honor those who honor me, but those who despise me will be disdained. Behold, the days are coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your father's house, so that no older man will be left in your house. You will see distress in my dwelling place. Despite all that is good in Israel, no one in your house will ever again reach old age. And every one of you that I do not cut off from my altar, your eyes will fail and your heart will grieve. All your descendants will die by the sword of men. And this sign shall come to you concerning your 2 sons Hophni and Phinehas, they will both die on the same day. Then I will raise up for myself a faithful priest. He will do whatever is in my heart and mind. And I will build for him an enduring house, and he will walk before my anointed one for all time. And everyone left in your house will come and bow down to him for a piece of silver or a morsel of bread, pleading, Please appoint me to some priestly office so that I can eat a piece of bread. And the boy Samuel ministered to the Lord before Eli. Now in those days the word of the Lord was rare and visions were scarce. And at that time Eli, whose eyesight had grown so dim that he could not see, was lying in his room. Before the lamp of God had gone out, Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was located. Then the Lord called to Samuel, and he answered, Here I am. He ran to Eli and said, Here I am, for you have called me. I did not call, Eli replied. Go back and lie down. So he went and lay down. Once again the Lord called, Samuel. So Samuel got up, went to Eli, and said, Here I am, for you have called me. My son, I did not call, Eli replied. Go back and lie down. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, because the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Once again, for the 3rd time, the Lord called to Samuel. He got up, went to Eli, and said, Here I am, for you have called me. Then Eli realized that it was the Lord who was calling the boy. "Go and lie down," he said to Samuel, "and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Then the Lord came and stood there, calling as before, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel answered, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "I am about to do something in Israel at which the ears of all who hear it will tingle. On that day I will carry out against Eli everything I have spoken about his family, from beginning to end. I told him that I would judge his house forever for the iniquity of which he knows, because his sons blasphemed God and he did not restrain them. Therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli, the iniquity of Eli's house shall never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering." Samuel lay down until the morning, then he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision, but Eli called to him and said, "Samuel, my son." "Here I am," answered Samuel. "What was the message he gave you?" Eli asked. "Do not hide it from me. May God punish you, and ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he said to you." So Samuel told him everything and did not hide a thing from him. "He is the Lord," replied Eli. "Let him do what is good in his eyes." And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. So all Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, because there he revealed himself to Samuel by his word. Luke 8 verses 26 to 56. Then they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time this man had not worn clothing or lived in a house, but he stayed in the tombs. When the man saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him, shouting in a loud voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you not to torture me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was bound with chains and shackles, he had broken the chains and been driven by the demon into solitary places. "What is your name?" Jesus asked. "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And the demons kept begging Jesus not to order them to go into the abyss. There on the hillside a large herd of pigs was feeding. So the demons begged Jesus to let them enter the pigs, and he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and countryside. So the people went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and found the man whom the demons had left, sitting at Jesus' feet, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Meanwhile, those who had seen it reported how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to depart from them, because great fear had taken hold of them. So he got into the boat and started back. The man whom the demons had left begged to go with Jesus. But he sent him away, saying, "Return home and describe how much God has done for you." So the man went away and proclaimed all over the town how much Jesus had done for him. When Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they had all been waiting for him. Just then a synagogue leader named Jairus came and fell at Jesus' feet. He begged him to come to his house, because his only daughter, who was about 12, was dying. As Jesus went with him, the crowds pressed around him, including a woman who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years. She had spent all her money on physicians, but no one was able to heal her. She came up behind Jesus and touched the fringe of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. But they all denied it. "Master," said Peter, "the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus declared, "Someone touched me, for I know that power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not escape notice, came trembling and fell down before him. In the presence of all the people, she explained why she had touched him and how she had immediately been healed. "Daughter," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone arrived from the house of the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," he told Jairus. "Do not bother the teacher anymore." But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Do not be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed." When he entered the house, he did not allow anyone to go in with him except Peter, John, James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, everyone was weeping and mourning for her. But Jesus said, "Stop weeping, she is not dead but asleep." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But Jesus took her by the hand and called out, "Child, get up." Her spirit returned, and at once she got up. And he directed that she be given something to eat. Her parents were astounded, but Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened.